Hello, and thank you for joining me for another edition of AB Talks. I'm delighted to be joined today by members from across the industries in France to have a conversation on sustainability, renewables, and the importance of green investment. I'm joined today by Philippe, the CEO of Provence Promotion, the economic development agency for Provence, Stephanie Marco, the Deputy Managing Director of EDF Middle East, Matthew Viz, the Head of International Strategy at Provence Promotion, and Nicolas Cambazard, the Territory Expert for Decarbonisation in Provence. Everyone, thank you for joining me. I hope we have a good conversation today. Stephanie, I don't know if maybe you can add in on there regarding what the situation looks like from a business perspective and how it helps in terms of developing new technologies such as the data centers that you've already mentioned, how that kind of setup is important and the lessons that maybe the Gulf could take as well.
Yeah, the thing is that Provence is a land of innovation and EDF is an innovative company. So our paths are linked, and each time we are developing a new project abroad, and especially here in the Gulf countries, we have first experienced it in France and especially in Provence. Renewable energy, solar farm, hydropower station. So all that kind of installations and equipments, we have already experienced it, and we have a long experience now to share with our partners and clients here in the Gulf. And maybe if I can take other examples, as the river cooling I mentioned just before, we have just launched a new project as well, very innovative, maybe a first of its kind, a project which is called Marseilles. And it's a project very innovative and very interesting. It's an eco-district. So this district is very close to the sea and to the port of Marseille. And we have developed something like solidarity between the buildings, So each building is helping and supporting each other depending on the consumption of energy. For example, when you use the AC in an office, at the end you produce heat, and this heat is reutilized to produce heat for the houses and the apartments. So that kind of project is managed by Marseilles project. And in addition, when there is not enough energy by this way of, let's say, energy management and solidarity management, in addition, we have built the first of its kind plant of thalassothermy. So what is the thalassothermy? So I will try to be simple. So you pumped the seawater at a depth of 4 meters, and this water is launched to a heater exchange, which communicates with another network of water, which is fresh water. And so the temperate water of the sea, because the sea in Marseille is quite warmer than in the North Sea. So you use this temperate water to exchange the heat with the fresh water and to go in a water pump, etc. And so at the end it's complicated, but thanks to this cycle you can produce with a better carbon footprint the heat and the cooling for all the district. At the end, we reduce the carbon footprint by 80%, and it leads to save 600 tons of CO2 per year. So, and it's at the level of a district, so I'll let you imagine what it could be at a city level, and it can be duplicable on all the cities that are nearby the sea. So it could be very interesting for the Gulf cities, which are nearby the sea, because as we mentioned before, the Arabian Gulf, the sea and the water is quite, let's say, is warm. Maybe as much as the maybe a little bit more than the Mediterranean, but yes, we can benefit from this water to try to do something as a thalassothermy. Yeah.
I think there's something interesting to be drawn out there as well. My understanding is that the Provence region is quite unusual in terms of its diversity of renewable energy assets.
Yeah.
So you mentioned 2 or 3 there. There was a very simple explanation of one of them.
Yeah.
Might have gone over my head slightly. But in regards to the different uses of seawater and so on. So maybe we could have a macro level view of all of the renewable energy investments and development that's going on in the region and where the opportunities lie there. Philippe, maybe that one's for you.
Maybe we have to underline that the biggest scientific cooperation in the world is today run in Provence under the name of ITER. ITER is a Latin word for the way to the clean fusion energy. This project is gathering 15 billion euro within a period of 30 years with 35 countries in order to create an experimental reactor 30 minutes north of Marseille and to reuse all these scientific results with all the countries involved in order to create new reactors within a period of 30, 40 years. This is the biggest asset today in Provence region, and we know that ITER international organization is really open to cooperation with Gulf countries. We know that this could be of interest to create some links, and for sure the ITER organization is already discussing with Gulf countries. On the other hand, we have the renewable energies through the water, but also the wind. We are presently with a floating windmill innovation in the port of Marseille. We will be maybe the first location for manufacturing this kind of equipment. Solar, windmill, power to gas, that's to say the storage of renewable energies, renewable electricity, transforming this renewable electricity into gas. And the name of this pilot is Jupiter 1000. The first of the world had been developed in the port of Marseille. But what is more interesting is what Mathieu was underlining. That's to say the energy leaders are not alone. They are sharing the stage with aeronautics leaders, maritime transportation leaders, healthcare leaders, and digital leaders. The best way for the energies leaders are to take part to the innovation of other sectors, not only in their sector, but in kind of cross-fertilization. Marseille had been the fourth larger oil and gas port in the world by the 70s. And today is the fourth port of energies for cooperation between energies leaders and other sectors. This is of real interest for a region of the world like Gulf countries. We are also based on this expertise with oil and gas, but today which are diversifying their economy. What is the link between energies and diversification? We could share this way of thinking.
You touched on the port there. Shipping is an essential industry across the world. But one of the most important aspects that doesn't get spoken about is the sustainability of shipping itself. So ships are getting more sustainable. I've seen developments on that side, but less so is the conversation regarding the port itself. And you just mentioned the port. I understand that the port of Marseille-Fos has already emphasized some sustainability objectives. It's emphasized some digitization objectives. Maybe I think, Mathieu, if you want to have a quick couple of words there on what the port and the situation is going on at the port.
So yeah, we talked about first digital routes, but of course the main routes are maritime first. So it's about flows, flows of so maritime routes, digital routes, also energy flows. As Philippe explained, there are many demonstrators, many projects also into energy. So about the maritime, they are facing huge challenges. So as you know, since the COVID crisis, the market is growing very fast because of the e-commerce, because of the traffic in itself, the tension on supply chain. So it's growing so we have to address that. What is the Port of Marseille-Fos doing, by the way? But at the same time, they are also acting in terms of carbon footprint reduction, decarbonization. So this is this huge challenge that we are facing today. And the Port of Marseille has strong assets to do that. They have the innovation that is happening there with large groups like EDF, like Engie, like Total Energy. So many large groups are involved into those new prototypes, demonstrators. But also they have launched what they call the Smart Port Challenge, which is a kind of contest. They, together with EDF, with all those big players, they are presenting challenges how to decarbonize the port. And they are sourcing startups internationally, not only in France. So any startup here in the Gulf countries could apply to the Smart Port Challenge and present their solution. And the idea is, by the way of this contest, challenges, to identify new startups and disruptive innovations that could help us accelerate this decarbonization. So the Smart Port Challenge is both about sourcing startups innovation, but also bringing together, it's a collective effort to do that. So it's also bringing a community of, again, the academic, Aix-Marseille University, first university in the region, but also the main French-speaking university in the world today, over 80,000 students. So Aix-Marseille University, the Chamber of Commerce, representing all the companies, and also the Port of Marseille, of course, managing this Smart Port Challenge.
So we've already discussed earlier the level of collaborative ecosystem that we have in the Provence region. I don't know, Stephanie, in particular, if maybe you could come at this from the EDF's angle. We've mentioned the EDF a couple of times already throughout our conversation here. So what kind of role does having this collaborative ecosystem play, especially with regards to the port? And are there any lessons that can be learned that the Gulf can take away further?
Yeah, so maybe I will add something about the Smart Port contest you just mentioned. So EDF is part of the 9 project developer for this contest, and we are working with a startup in Marseille, and we want to develop a project which is using the offshore dike in the port of Marseille, sending a ship. The ship will use the wind in high seas we can observe to produce electricity on the ship. And this electricity will be stored either in batteries, either on hydrogen, for example, and bring it back to the port and then send it wherever we need this energy. So that will be the project EDF will propose with the collaboration of a startup in Marseille. Maybe the second project I can mention is the project we are calling Provence Grand Large. It's in French, I'm sorry. And it's again a first of its kind project of floating wind turbine. So we have the ability to see wind turbine on the land. We have the ability to see some wind turbine offshore, but quite close to the shores. And this floating wind turbines is interesting because it can be put up to 60 meters depth, meaning that we can be a little bit far away from the shores. So there is no impact on the landscape, you know. There is less impact on the fishing activities. There is less impact on the recreational activities. And at the end, as we are further from the shore and on the sea, the winds are more powerful, so we can produce more than on conventional wind turbines. So this project is a pilot project that has been attributed to EDF with a consortium with a Canadian company. And we are working on this project. It's a 25 in cumulative 25 megawatt project. And if it's a success, and we are quite sure it will be a success, it will be the first step of a larger project which can be up to 700 megawatts. So we can see that this kind of project of floating wind turbine is duplicable all over the world, and especially here in the Gulf, because of the Arabian Gulf, but as well in the Red Sea. So we have many places to develop that kind of project, yeah.
Stephanie, I'm just going to keep on you for a moment here, if you don't mind. I thought we'd have a quick discussion as well around smart cities.
Yeah.
We're here in Dubai, which is itself a smart city at Expo, at the beautiful French pavilion. I'd like to ask you a little bit more about the role that EDF plays in smart cities. You mentioned earlier the different cooling aspects that you have. In terms of the relationship that EDF has had with the authorities in Marseille and that ecosystem that's been built, would you say there's anything there that makes the region particularly special, that enhances this innovative atmosphere that we're seeing in the region?
Yes, I think that, again, within Marseille, EDF has a long story of collaboration, Marseille and all the cities around. So we have developed many kind of projects, even in street lighting or cities master plan, etc. And the smart cities, it's not, it's an entire value chain. And EDF is present on the whole value chain, but you have to think about the city before building it. It's the perfect, let's say, it's the perfect plan. If you can design the city before building it, and here in the Gulf, I think we have some good examples or illustration. And if you think the city upfront, you can build the city to be sustainable from day one. And you can make the city sustainable thanks to the district cooling, thanks to the street lighting, thanks to the energy efficiency of the building, thanks to the transportation. That could be a hydrogen transportation, for example. So you can do many things to make the city sustainable, but it will be better to work all together from day one to design the perfect city, to be smart.
That's why in Marseille, the French government is developing for the last 20 years the Euro-Mediterranean district. The Euro-Mediterranean district is a partner of EDF, of course, but also the Port of Marseille. And Euro-Mediterranean were there, I think, 3 weeks ago, dealing with other French smart cities with counterparts in the Gulf countries, is presently running the general purpose and the big vision. That's to say, design first, but a comprehensive design of the city. Not only from energy point of view, but also building point of view, transportation, but also food, for instance, how to manage to join agro-food, local agro-food production for new inhabitants. All these kinds of discussions are made first, and after we could have this big cross-fertilization which X sectors, energies, transportation, building, and so on. So French government is today sharing this experience, we know, with other projects in the Gulf countries, especially in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. But these kind of projects are, in fact, a shared point of view between the Gulf countries and France to have a comprehensive project in a new city before launching specific developments.
And if I may add to your comments, we are also lucky to have local expertise like Cité Gestion. Cité Gestion is a branch from EDF Group dedicated to, how may I say, smart management of a city.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So you were mentioning
Thank you to do the promotion.
So they have their research team in Provence, and they are, of course, not only working there, they have contracts all over the world, but the research team is based there. So it's also interacting with the territory.
I suppose, as again, we see that relationship is incredibly important. So let's flip this on its head slightly and ask the reverse question. What are the real opportunities in the Provence region, especially for investors looking in? You guys are obviously always looking for more investment. Where are the true opportunities? Where are the secret nuggets that we haven't spoken about yet so far?
Okay, so first of all, Marseille being the largest port in France and the Mediterranean, big players like DP World are already investing in Marseille, and we are thinking that they are the good players for decarbonation of maritime transportation and to follow all these initiatives. From an air transport point of view, we think that companies like JETEX, already present in the Marseille airport, will continue to support the carbon neutral strategy of our airport and maybe other strategies dealing with new kind of general aviation, for instance. But even startups, for instance, we were thinking about smart city, including what could be the agro-food link between inhabitants and local agro-food producers. Last week, we welcomed a startup from Dubai, Interesting Times, which is presently developing a digital marketplace for Marseille inhabitants to be in contact with local producers of agro-food. So we need to take the best from the Gulf countries and from European countries to create this kind of shared prosperity around smart cities, but also smart transportation.
Well, thank you very much. We're coming near to the end of our time. I'd like to ask everyone for any final thoughts before we finish. Stephanie, have you got anything that you'd like to add around sustainability?
I think that's it.
Matthew?
Yeah, maybe in terms of smart transportation and the future of transportation, maritime transportation. It's also Provence where, for example, in terms of new energies for the maritime transport, this is where it's happening. Like the LNG, the port is investing in an LNG bunkering hub. So this is already done. Now they are moving to the next step, which is having bio LNG. So LNG that will be produced out of household waste treatment. So that's the future, and it's happening also there with companies like Total Energy or Shell or Engie. So those big players are investing together in the future of LNG energies. And I was also thinking, besides LNG, at another move that is hydrogen. But maybe I'll leave this to our expert. Just very quickly, hydrogen, I mean, CMA CGM, third worldwide shipping company headquartered in Marseille, has already invested into LNG vessels. So this is down, they will have more and more LNG vessels. But they are already preparing the next step. The next step could be either hydrogen, so vessels that will be propelled by hydrogen, but also wind propulsion vessels. That's something interesting. We have, for example, a startup called Sirocco, and this young startup is using the wind energy to propel large vessels. So it's very futuristic now, but it's happening in Marseille with CMA CGM and with those startups.
Nicholas, have you got something to add there? Our expert on decarbonisation?
Yeah, just to add that we have a lot to do with renewables in Provence. Of course, we are developing some new energy. Philippe spoke about a new power-to-gas project with hydrogen. Mathieu, you speak about also. Hydrogen is well developed in Provence. We already have some players that are working on the project. We have industrial leaders who lead some industrial project to develop some green hydrogen in Provence. We have some big industrial players that consume hydrogen, and so it's a good way to start the production of hydrogen. Regarding the mobility, we have also some new development and future development in aerospace, for example. We are working with the Thales companies, which is going to build in Provence the first stratospheric airship, which is called Stratobus, which is more like balloons that can be small satellites to go on the stratosphere. And we also have a lot of development about UAV. Airbus Helicopters working closely to Naval Group, which is a big player in defense, around UAV, and we have a lot of knowledge around that. In order to support also this development, especially for aerospace, we have a cluster of companies that speak about the aerospace ecosystem, which is called Safe Cluster. And we also have some cluster of companies dedicated to energy that works on the development of new energy, which is called Cap Energy. And these clusters help us to define the companies of tomorrow and to take off some projects and some companies in Provence, innovative companies.
Finally, Philippe, any last remarks before we close up?
What is quite interesting, Dubai is a port city. The history of Dubai is founded of the creation of this port city, and Marseille has the same history. And what is interesting today is that this old history is part of our future. That's to say, new players, startups mainly, and new technologies are taking the fact that maritime transportation energies are more and more depending on ports. So the port cities previously were like historical cities, not really at the center of high-tech companies. But today, Dubai city and Marseille city are taking place in the same stage, international stage of decarbonation for the economy. And this, for us, is of great help to think that our past is also one of the main reasons of our next success. So I'm really confident in the cross-fertilization between Gulf country startups, big players in Europe, especially in France and in south of France, for this development of the economy without carbon.
Thank you. And with that, I think that's a very great point to end on. I appreciate all of you taking the time to speak with me, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.